Hello, look who they're calling selfish now. Hello to the ones they branded cold, the ones they called heartless, the ones they swore turned their back on everything that mattered. Hello to you, the so-called villain in their convenient little story. The monster they created when you finally stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't hand you a tissue. They're out here writing paragraphs about how you changed, how you abandoned ship, how you left them all behind without looking back. And you know what? They're absolutely right. You did walk away. You did choose yourself. You did stop playing savior to people who mistook your kindness for weakness and your loyalty for stupidity. And that decision, that one ruthless, selfish, calculated move, it didn't just change your life. It shifted the entire frequency of what was possible. They wanted you to stay drowning. They needed you stuck in that quicksand, reaching for hands that kept pulling back at the last second, screaming for help that never came, because as long as you were the one suffering, they felt safe in their mediocrity. As long as you were the broken one, the struggling one, the one barely holding on, they could look at themselves in the mirror and say, at least I'm not that bad. You were their emotional punching bag, their free therapist, their validation machine, their proof that someone had it worse. And the moment you stopped performing that role, the moment you ripped off that costume and said, I'm done being your emotional dumpster, that's when you became the enemy. Isn't that beautiful? You spent years trying to save everyone around you. Pouring from an empty cup, setting yourself on fire to keep them warm, and the second you chose to save yourself instead, you became the villain in their story. But here's what they'll never admit. Here's the truth that keeps them up at night. Scrolling through your old messages, refreshing your page, asking mutual friends if you're okay. When you walked away, when you chose yourself, when you became what they call selfish, you didn't just save yourself, you activated something in the atmosphere. You set off a chain reaction that they're still trying to comprehend, because people were watching, silent witnesses to your transformation. Souls who were drowning in the same waters you escaped from. And when they saw you climb out, when they watched you choose yourself without apology, without explanation, without begging for permission, something clicked. You gave them permission to do the same. You became the blueprint, the escape route, the living proof that you can survive the guilt, that you can walk away from toxicity, even when it's wearing a familiar face. That you can rebuild after burning everything down. They say you were selfish, but what they mean is you were the first one brave enough to jump. You were the one who looked at the sinking ship, realized the captain was drunk and the crew was fighting over who gets the lifeboats, and you just quietly slipped into the water and started swimming. You didn't announce it. You didn't write a manifesto. You didn't burn bridges with gasoline and matches. You just left. And that silence, that unexplained exit, that refusal to justify your survival, it broke something in them, because now they're stuck on that ship, watching you swim to shore, and they're realizing for the first time that leaving was always an option. They just never had the guts to take it. You did. And now they're calling it selfish because they don't have a word for courage that doesn't ask for applause. Let's talk about what really happened, the part they conveniently forget when they're painting you as the villain. You gave them everything, didn't you? Your time, your energy, your tears, your sleepless nights, your mental health, your peace. You showed up when no one else did. You stayed when everyone else left. You believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. You were the friend who picked up at 3 in the morning, the partner who forgave the unforgivable, the child who kept trying to earn love from people who should have given it freely. You bent yourself into shapes you were never meant to fit just to make them comfortable. And what did they do with all that sacrifice? They got used to it. They started expecting it. They turned your kindness into a subscription service and then got mad when you canceled it. You became their emotional insurance policy, the one they only called when disaster struck. You were the backup plan, the safety net, the free therapy session, the unconditional support system that asked for nothing in return. And here's the sickest part. They never saw you as a person. They saw you as a function, a role, a service. You were the strong one, the dependable one, the one who always figures it out, the one who never needs help. So they never checked on you. They never asked if you were okay. They never noticed you were drowning because they were too busy using you as a lifeboat. And the moment you stopped being useful, the moment you stopped performing miracles for people who wouldn't even give you a glass of water, they turned on you like you broke some sacred contract. Like your humanity was a betrayal. But you didn't betray them, you woke up. There's a difference. Betrayal is breaking a promise. Waking up is realizing the promise was designed to destroy you. You spent years in a relationship, friendship, family dynamic, workplace, situation where the unspoken rule was simple. Your needs don't matter. Your pain is inconvenient. Your boundaries are negotiable. Your exhaustion is weakness. And you played along because you thought that's what love looked like. You thought that's what loyalty meant. You thought if you just gave enough, sacrificed enough, proved yourself enough, eventually they'd see your value. But they never did. Because people who only love what you do for them never see who you are. And one day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. That's when everything changed. You didn't plan to be selfish. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to become cold. What happened was simpler and more terrifying. You ran out of you. There was nothing left to give. The well was dry. The engine was smoking. The lights were flickering. And in that moment of complete depletion, you made a choice that saved your life. You chose to disappoint them instead of destroying yourself. You chose to be called selfish instead of being actually dead. You chose your survival over their comfort. And that decision, that one impossible, terrifying, necessary decision, it wasn't selfish. It was self-preservation. It was the first act of self-love you'd performed in years. It was your soul screaming, enough, after being silent for so long that you forgot it had a voice. So you left. You walked away. You stopped answering. You stopped explaining. You stopped showing up to one-sided relationships disguised as friendships. You stopped carrying their emotional baggage while they criticized the way you held it. You stopped setting yourself on fire to keep warm people who wouldn't even let you near their fireplace. And what happened next? Chaos. Because systems built on your silence cannot survive your voice. Relationships built on your submission cannot survive your spine. Families built on your compliance cannot survive your clarity. You weren't holding things together, you were holding yourself hostage. And the moment you escaped, everything they built on your back collapsed. They panicked. Oh, they panicked. Suddenly the person they took for granted was gone. Suddenly the emotional labor was undone. Suddenly they had to face their own emptiness without you there to fill it. And instead of looking inward, instead of asking, why did they leave? They asked, how dare they leave us? They made your survival about their abandonment. They turned your healing into their trauma. They weaponized your absence like you owed them your presence, and the narrative shifted fast. You went from being the reliable one to the cold one, from the caring one to the heartless one, from the loyal one to the traitor. And every single person who benefited from your depletion suddenly became a victim of your evolution. But here's what's wild. While they were busy vilifying you, while they were writing essays in group chats about how you'd changed, while they were playing victim to an audience that didn't know the full story, something else was happening. You were healing, silently, privately, without an audience. You weren't posting about your journey. You weren't defending your decision. You weren't trying to prove anything to anyone. You just existed in your new reality, learning to breathe again, learning to sleep without guilt, learning to exist without apologizing for taking up space. And that silence drove them insane, because they needed your reaction. They needed your defense. They needed you to care about their opinion of you so they could maintain control. They kept waiting for you to come back, apologize, explain, beg for forgiveness, prove you'd changed back into the version of you they could exploit. But you never did. You never flinched. You never explained. You never defended. You just kept walking forward, kept building your new life, kept choosing yourself over and over and over again. And with every day that passed, with every boundary you maintained, with every call you didn't answer, with every guilt trip you didn't board, you got stronger. Your spine straightened, your vision cleared, your energy returned, and the person who walked away broken came back completely rebuilt. Not for them, for you. And that transformation, that refusal to regress, that commitment to your own survival, it sent a message to everyone watching. Freedom is possible. Choosing yourself is not a crime. Walking away is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. And here's where it gets interesting. Here's where your so-called selfishness became something they never expected. Liberation for others. Because you weren't the only one trapped. You weren't the only one drowning in expectations, suffocating under guilt, performing a version of yourself that made everyone else comfortable while destroying you internally. There were others, watching, waiting, wondering if escape was possible. People who felt the same chains but thought they were the only ones. Souls who wanted to leave but didn't know if they'd survive the judgment. Hearts who were tired but convinced they had to keep going because that's what strong people do. And then you left, and you survived, and you didn't come back broken. You came back free. You became the evidence that they needed, the proof that walking away doesn't make you a monster. The living testimony that choosing yourself is not the end of the world, it's the beginning of your life. And one by one, people started following your lead. That friend who was stuck in a relationship that was slowly killing them, they finally left. That coworker who was being exploited by a boss who mistook dedication for desperation, they finally quit. That family member who was tired of being the emotional punching bag for people who never healed their own trauma, they finally set boundaries. And every single one of them will tell you the same thing. I watched you do it first. I watched you survive it. You made me believe I could too. You didn't try to be a hero. You didn't set out to inspire anyone. You didn't make a movement or start a revolution. You just saved yourself. But in a world where people are taught to die for others' comfort, choosing to live for yourself is a radical act. In a culture that glorifies self-sacrifice to the point of self-destruction, prioritizing your own peace is rebellion. In a society that conditions people to shrink, to serve, to stay silent, standing up and walking away is warfare. You declared war on the system that was killing you, and you won. And everyone who was losing that same war saw you win and realized victory was possible. They call it selfish, but the people you saved, the ones who found their courage in your escape, the ones who finally chose themselves after watching you do it first, they call it something else. They call it permission. They call it validation. They call it the wake-up call they didn't know they needed. Because you proved that the guilt is survivable. You proved that the judgment is temporary. You proved that people will talk no matter what you do. So you might as well do what keeps you alive. You became the blueprint for self-rescue. And now, there's a whole generation of people who are choosing themselves, setting boundaries, walking away from toxicity, refusing to shrink, and they're doing it because you did it first. Not because you told them to, but because you showed them it was possible. So let's address the title directly. You weren't trying to save anyone. Facts. You were just trying to survive. You were drowning and you swam. You were burning and you escaped. You were trapped and you found the exit. There was no heroic intention, no grand plan, no desire to be anyone's inspiration. You were in survival mode, fighting for your life, choosing your sanity over their expectations. But here's the beautiful, terrifying, powerful truth. Your survival became someone else's survival guide. Your escape became someone else's permission to be free. You saved everything by saving yourself. And now you're a legend, not the kind they write about in books or make movies about, the kind they whisper about in late-night conversations, the kind they reference when they're gathering courage, the kind they think about when they're standing at their own crossroads, trying to decide if they should stay or if they should save themselves. You're the story they tell when someone asks, "Is it really okay to choose yourself?" You're the proof they cite when someone says, "But what will people think?" You're the example they use when someone is drowning in guilt for considering self-preservation. You became the legend that gives permission to be human. They wanted you to stay small. They needed you to stay stuck. They required you to stay suffering so they could feel superior. But you refused. You expanded. You evolved. You erupted out of the box they built for you. And you didn't apologize for the destruction. And now every single person who tried to keep you contained is watching you soar. And they're confused, they're bitter, they're analyzing, they're wondering how you did it, how you survived the thing that was supposed to destroy you, how you thrived after the thing that was supposed to break you. And the answer is simple: you chose you. That's it. That's the secret. There's no magic formula, no special technique, no hidden wisdom. You just decided that your life mattered more than their opinion of it. And here's what they'll never understand. You don't feel guilty. You're not coming back. You're not second-guessing your decision. You're not losing sleep over people who are losing sleep over you. Because once you taste freedom, once you experience peace, once you feel what it's like to exist without constantly apologizing for your existence, you can't go back. You won't go back. The old version of you is dead and buried, and you're not performing a resurrection for an audience that never appreciated you when you were alive. You're not here to prove anything. You're not here to defend your decision. You're not here to make them understand. You're here to live. Fully, loudly, unapologetically. And if that makes you selfish in their eyes, then you'll wear that label like a crown. Let me tell you what really happened. What they call selfishness is actually self-awareness. What they call abandonment is actually calm resetting. What they call cold is actually calm. What they call heartless is actually healed. You didn't lose your empathy. You just stopped directing it at people who weaponized it. You didn't become cruel. You just stopped being convenient. You didn't turn into a monster. You just stopped pretending to be a martyr. And that shift, that transition from self-sacrifice to self-preservation, it terrified them because it exposed them. Your presence used to make them feel good about themselves. Your struggle made them feel successful. Your chaos made them feel stable. Your wounds made them feel whole. They needed you broken because it validated their mediocrity. But when you healed, when you stabilized, when you found peace, suddenly they had to face themselves without the distraction of fixing you. And what they saw in that mirror, it wasn't pretty. So instead of looking inward, they looked at you. And they decided you were the problem. You were too much. You changed. You're not who you used to be. And you know what? They're right. You're not who you used to be. You're who you were always meant to be. Before they convinced you to shrink, you became the villain in their story, so you could be the hero in your own. And that trade-off, that exchange, that decision to prioritize your narrative over their comfort, it wasn't selfish. It was necessary. It was survival. It was the most loving thing you've ever done for yourself, because staying would have killed you. Not physically maybe, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You would have disappeared into their expectations, dissolved into their demands, evaporated into their needs, until there was nothing left of you but a ghost performing a role that was never meant for you. So you chose life. You chose yourself. And that choice rippled outward in ways you'll never fully comprehend. Somewhere right now, someone is gathering the courage to leave because you left first. Someone is setting a boundary because you set one and survived. Someone is choosing themselves because you proved it's possible. Someone is saying no because you said no, and the world didn't end. Someone is walking away because you walked away and found peace on the other side. You weren't trying to save anyone, but you just saved everything. You saved yourself from destruction. You saved others from staying in their own destruction. You saved the future from a version of you that would have been a cautionary tale instead of a comeback story. You saved the narrative from another story of martyrdom and replaced it with a story of resurrection. So here we are, at the end of this conversation, and you're probably wondering what happens next. Here's what happens. Nothing changes. You don't go back. You don't apologize. You don't shrink to make them comfortable.